Hello everyone, I am Darshini, Assistant Professor of Mathematics. In the previous sessions, we have learnt about continuous functions and we have solved some examples as well. In this session, we are going to learn some of the theorems on continuous functions. Let's get it. Consider the first theorem. Every continuous function on a closed interval is bounded. To prove this, first let us consider a continuous function f of x on a closed interval a comma b. I am going to use contradiction method to prove this theorem. First, I am going to assume that f of x is not bounded on ab and I arrive at a contradiction. Suppose f of x is not bounded on AB. First, what I am going to do is I divide AB into two equal parts. Divide AB into subintervals AC and CB. Since C is the midpoint, where C is equal to a plus b by 2. Now since f of x is not bounded on AB, either f of x is not bounded on both AC and CB, or it is not bounded on at least one of these intervals. Since f of x is not bounded on AB, f of x is not bounded on one of these subintervals. F of x is not bounded on at least one of these subintervals. Let us relabel that interval as I1. Say I1 is equal to a1 comma b1. Let the given interval be equal to I. Okay. Now I divide I1 into two equal parts. So what I am going to do is now divide I1 into subintervals a1 comma c1 and c1 comma b1, where c1 is the midpoint of a1 and b1, which is equal to a1 plus b1 by 2. Now again, for the same reason, since f of x is not bounded on I1, it is not bounded on either a1 comma c1 or c1 comma b1. Since f of x is not bounded on I1, f of x is not bounded on one of these subintervals. Say I2 equal to a2 comma bit. Again, I can divide I2 into two subintervals. Again, for the same reason, f of x will not be bounded on one of those intervals. If I continue the process like this, I get an infinite sequence of intervals, because this process will never going to end, since f of x is not a bounded function by our assumption. So I get a sequence of intervals satisfying the following conditions. Continuing this way, I get a sequence of intervals I1, I2 and so on, satisfying three conditions. The first condition is I superset of I1, superset of I2, superset of I3 and so on. And the second condition, f of x is not bounded on In for all n belongs to n. And the third condition is if you observe the length of each intervals, the length of I is b minus a, this is ab. First I divided it into two equal parts, so the length of I1 is b minus a by 2. So next to find out I2, I divided I1 into two equal parts, so the length of I2 will be equal to b minus a by 2 which is equal to b minus a by 2 square. Similarly, length of In, which is bn minus an, is equal to b minus a by 2 to the power of n for all n belongs to n. Okay. So we have a sequence of intervals satisfying these conditions. Now let me find out the limit of this length as n tends to infinity. Consider limit of length of In as n tends to infinity, which is equal to limit of b minus a by 2 to the power of n as n tends to infinity, which is equal to 0. Hence I should have a point x naught, so there exists an x naught belongs to the intersection of these intervals. The existence of this point is guaranteed by Cantor's intersection theorem. This is one form of Cantor's intersection theorem. If we have a sequence of closed and bounded sets satisfying this condition, In superset of In plus 1 for all n belongs to n, then the intersection of In is not empty. The other form of Cantor's intersection theorem is if you have a decreasing sequence of intervals such that length of interval tends to 0 as n tends to infinity, then the intersection of In contains exactly one point. Let that point be x naught. Now since each In is a subset of AB, intersection of In is also a subset of AB. We know that f of x is continuous on AB. In particular, it is continuous at x naught. Since f of x is continuous on AB, it is continuous at x naught. So by epsilon delta definition, for epsilon positive, there exists delta positive such that mod of f of x minus f of x naught less than epsilon whenever mod of x minus x naught less than delta, or x belongs to x naught minus delta, x naught plus delta. Now since length of In tends to 0 as n tends to infinity, the length of In can be made smaller than any value. In particular, if I make length of In less than delta, then definitely In will be contained in this interval. So if I take this as 1, from 1 I can find an interval Im. There exists Im such that Im is contained in this interval x naught plus delta. Now let me take an element in this interval. Let x belongs to Im. Since Im is contained in this interval, by this statement, let me take this as 2. Im is a subset of x naught minus delta, x naught plus delta. So by 2, we have here mod of f of x minus f of x naught less than epsilon. Mod of f of x minus f of x naught less than epsilon. Now consider mod of f of x. This can be written as mod of f of x minus f of x naught plus f of x naught. By the triangle inequality, this is less than or equal to mod of f of x minus f of x naught plus mod of f of x naught. By this, we have this is less than epsilon plus mod of f of x naught. Since epsilon is constant and f of x naught is constant, let me take this term as m. Since x is arbitrary, x belongs to Im is arbitrary, we have here mod of f of x less than m for all x belongs to Im. In other words, f of x is bounded on Im. That is, f of x is bounded on I, which is a contradiction. Here we have f of x is not bounded on In for all n belongs to n. Here we are getting that f of x is bounded on Im is a contradiction to 2, and hence our assumption is wrong. F of x should be bounded on AB. Now consider the next theorem. Continuous function on a closed interval attains its bounds. That means that if you consider a continuous function on a closed interval, the function takes the value of its infimum and supremum. First, let us take a continuous function on a closed interval AB. By the previous theorem, every continuous function on a closed interval is bounded, so f of x is bounded. This implies by previous theorem, f of x is bounded on AB. Okay. Now, since f of x is bounded on AB, supremum exists and infimum exists. Let us take m as the supremum of f of x in the interval AB and small m as the infimum of f of x in the interval AB. Now, by the definition of infimum and supremum, m is an upper bound, small m is a lower bound. So, this implies m less than or equal to f of x less than or equal to capital M for all x belongs to AB. Now, to show that there is a value in AB such that f of x is equal to m, I am going to use contradiction method. Now, to show that there exists C belongs to AB such that f of C equal to capital M, first I am going to assume the contrary. Suppose f of x is not equal to m for all x belongs to AB. Here we have f of x less than or equal to m. Since f of x cannot be equal to m, f of x is strictly less than m. This implies f of x is strictly less than m for all x belongs to AB. Now, m is greater than f of x, so m minus f of x is greater than 0. That is m minus f of x is greater than 0. Now, since f of x is a continuous function on AB, m minus f of x is also a continuous function on AB. Since f of x is continuous on AB, m minus f of x is also a continuous function on AB. And we have here m minus f of x greater than 0 and m minus f of x is continuous, so 1 by m minus f of x is defined and is continuous on AB. This implies 1 by m minus f of x is continuous on AB. So we have 1 by m minus f of x is continuous on AB, where m is the supremum of f of x in the interval AB. Again, by the previous theorem, since this is a continuous function on a closed interval, this is bounded on AB. By previous theorem, 1 by m minus f of x is bounded on AB. So it has a lower bound and it has an upper bound. So there exists a k positive such that 1 by m minus f of x is less than or equal to k for all x belongs to AB. Now let us simplify this. Take reciprocal on both sides. So I get here m minus f of x greater than or equal to 1 by k for all x belongs to AB. Now take 1 by k to the left hand side and f of x to the right hand side. So I get m minus 1 by k greater than or equal to f of x, or f of x is less than or equal to m minus 1 by k for all x belongs to AB. In other words, this is an upper bound for f of x on AB. That is, m minus 1 by k is an upper bound for f of x on AB, which is a contradiction to the fact that m is the least upper bound of f of x on AB. Since m is the least upper bound, any value less than m cannot be an upper bound. I am getting here m minus 1 by k, which is less than m, which is an upper bound for f of x, is a clear contradiction. So this is a contradiction to the fact that m is the supremum of f of x on AB. Okay, I arrived at a contradiction because of our wrong assumption. So there exists a point C in AB such that f of C is equal to m. So I have shown here f of x takes the value of the supremum. Similarly, I can show that there is a point D in AB for which f of D is equal to small m. Similarly, we can show that there is a point D belongs to AB such that f of D is equal to small m. So f of x takes the value of the supremum and infimum in the interval AB. In other words, f of x attains its bounds.